Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Jason Lehman. I'm the marketing team lead here at Fishbowl Solutions, and I'm happy to be joined by my colleague, Brent Genero. Welcome, Brent.
Hello.
And today we're going to be discussing how you can better understand your best options for Oracle WebCenter content migrations.
So the process for migration with the migration tool looks something like this. First, you create a connection to your source server by simply providing the URL and some administrator credentials. You then create a migration batch based on metadata criteria, and you configure your metadata mappings. Then you kick off the migration. Then you can monitor it and handle any errors that appear. So I can show you a demonstration of this, and what we're going to see is that I will configure a source server, create and build a batch, set up some metadata mappings, and then I'll kick off the transfer and show you how we can do our error handling. And then we'll also be able to see that we can monitor the progress and the performance of the migration. So with that, I will switch over to our demo. First, I'll log in. So this would be our destination server, and our tool provides a migration dashboard. And on this dashboard, you can see that we have a list of source connections. I already have one source connection set up. This is the connection to our source server. If I want to create another source connection, it's as simple as providing a name, the URL, and the admin credentials, and hitting create. Right now, I'm going to click into our existing try it source connection. And here you can see that we have a migration batches tab and a metadata mappings tab. Right now we have one batch already created where we migrated our policies. But what we're going to do is create a new batch for procedures. I'm going to do that by clicking migration batch and name it procedures. And in this case, it's everything with a DDoc type of equal to procedure. I can optionally include expired content as well and test the query. In this case, we can see I have 107 revisions that match this query. And since I think that looks correct, I'm going to go ahead and create it. So now if I expand our new batch, you can see that there isn't much other than that it knows there was 107 matching revisions. What we first need to do is a full build, and a full build will basically take inventory of all matching revisions on the source server. That way it can track them and make sure we get every single item. So after building, you can see that we now have the progress bar indicating that we have 0 of 107 revisions with 0 errors. If I go over to the remaining items, I can see that we have 107 remaining items. This is all the content that needs to be migrated. So before we actually perform the migration, what I can do is say preview next. And this will take the first item to be migrated and show us the initial metadata alongside the new metadata. So the initial metadata will show everything from the source server. The new metadata will show you what that metadata would look like once it gets migrated. I'm going to go ahead and try just migrating this item. But we instantly see that we run into an error. And in this case, it's because our security group is not valid on the destination server. So we need to set up a metadata mapping. So I'm going to close out of this, scroll up and go to our Mappings tab. So what we see on this tab is various mapping sets. If I go into our standard mapping set, you can see that we have a set of field maps and value maps. Our field maps allow us to take metadata fields and assign them metadata fields on the source server and assign them to metadata fields on the destination server. It's as simple as drag and drop. For any value maps, we can take any initial values coming in and map them to new values on the destination server. So for example, on an old 10G server, if there was a sysadmin author, we could have that mapped automatically to the WebLogic user in our new system. What I'm going to do right now is use the standard mapping and make a procedures mapping for that. So I'm going to actually clone this mapping. We'll call it procedures mapping. So we're going to clone that standard mapping. And as you can see, we're now in a procedures mapping set that is an exact copy of our standard mapping. So now that we are going to migrate procedures, what I'm going to do is go to our value maps, and I'm going to say any DDoC type that was a procedure I'm going to change to policy procedure, which is the DDoC type on the new system. In addition to that, I want to give the DDoC name, the content ID, a new prefix on the destination system. So I'll give it a webinar 1, and you'll notice that it'll be underscore and then DDoC name with IDOC script. So this will take the existing DDoC name and add the prefix to it. This is very handy for lots of reasons, and you can use a lot of different IDOC script to even create if-then logic to get the mappings you want on the new system. So I'm going to go ahead and save that and close out of our mapping. If I go back to migration batches, I can open our procedures batch again, and now I'm going to set the mapping to be the procedures mapping. Then I'm going to go review our errors. We previously had one item error out, and we can see that here. If I click view again, we can now look at the metadata mapping and see that our new metadata will have our new metadata or webinar 1 prefix. Our DDoC type of procedure becomes policy procedure. Now if I retry this migration with the metadata mappings, let's see what happens. In this case, we were successful. Now that the item and both revisions were migrated, I can click the content info, and now I can see that all of our content made it across for that content item. This is how we know that we were successful. So now I can close out of the error review page. And at this point, I can look at the completed bucket. So if I review the completed items, we can see that we actually had those 2 items successfully migrated. And in addition to that, we can see the old DID, the old DDoC name, alongside the new DID and the new DDoC name. This allows you to verify that your items in your old server made it to the new server. So at this point, if I'm confident that I have my metadata mapping set up correctly, I can kick off the migration. I can do that by enabling this procedures batch. And in a little bit, we will see it kick in. It is now active, and we'll see that the successfully migrated items are increasing. We can also see that some items are also throwing errors, and that number is increasing too. We can also see our current rate. Right now, we're around 5,000 revisions per hour, and we can also see that we're migrating about 887 megabytes per hour of files. While we are migrating, if we did run into a large number of errors, it is possible to configure the tool to email an administrator to let them know that they hit a high number of errors. This means you don't have to sit and watch the tool. You can do other tasks and be alerted if there are any errors that need to be brought to your attention. I'll also mention that at the bottom, we can optionally migrate the web viewable and the thumbnails, including workflow history. Because you can migrate web viewable files and thumbnails, the destination server doesn't need to get bogged down with reconverting, which speeds up the process altogether. In addition, up at the top, there is a speed that indicates the number of threads the migration tool will use. This allows you to adjust the amount of activity that you would be hitting your source server with. It's also possible to enable export throttling and give a time when the migration tool will be on a different speed. This can be very useful because you might not want to hit the source server, which could be a production server, during business hours. So at this point, it looks like we might have migrated all of the procedures we can. I'm going to disable that. The remaining items are items that haven't been tried yet because they're stuck behind items that have errored out. So once again, we can review our errors. Now we only have 4, but this could potentially be thousands of errors. In a situation where you're missing, say, option list value, you might have hundreds that errored out for them that same error. At that point, it is possible to filter by some text in the error. In this case, I filtered by profile and see 2 items. It would be possible to check every single item that is related to the missing option list value and retry just those items. This way, you can just remigrate those items and continue to resolve other errors. The tool can keep working while you work on other issues. Right now, I'm going to filter on a different error, and that is our release date error. And this is a common issue where the 2 revisions have the same release date. If I go ahead and view this item, you can see that revision 4 ran into the problem. Now, if I hit retry, it's just going to go through the same process where the validation of the system is going to prevent it from being checked in. But in this case, we actually have a force migrate feature, which will bypass the validation. We're okay with the 2 dates being the same. And you can see it went ahead and let that revision be migrated, and it continued the rest of the content item revision. One other feature is that while you're migrating, The source server might have additional check-ins, additional metadata updates, possibly deletions. At any point, you can hit refresh batch, which will rebuild and look for any new revisions that were checked in. It will look for any metadata updates that occurred, and it will look for any deletions that occurred and update your tables accordingly so that you can migrate all those items that you were missing. This is very helpful before a cutover where you just want to get the items that recently were migrated. One other thing I'd like to point out is that while you're migrating millions of items, you might want to track your performance. We can do that through the performance view right here. If I put in a recent time frame, I can see that there were three sets of content where you can view the duration, how many revisions were migrated, and you can see trends, either in revisions per hour or transfer per hour. Now this was a quick migration because it was only 100 items. But a typical migration might look something like this, where you can view your trends with your revisions per hour and your transfer per hour. So to recap our pain points with our archiver, we have configuration issues, we have temporary disk space issues, massive error logs, missing content, and often you delete your content and start over. With Fishbowl's migration tool, you can see there's a quick and easy setup. There's a direct transfer, so no disk space is needed. There's robust error management. Every revision is tracked, so you know you're not missing any revisions. And we found it to be reliable with millions of items. No need to start over. So in summary, the out-of-the-box archiver does have free options, and it can be useful, but when you're dealing with a lot of content, the Fishbowl migration tool really can fill those gaps, and it can also be enhanced. And regardless of your use case, Fishbowl can help with any issues you're dealing with.
And if you're looking for other information regarding all of the solutions and services that Fishbowl Solutions provide, we have many different information sources available to you, our website and social media channels listed here. Encourage you to please check that out. We get pretty active with blog content and things like that, so a lot of different resources for you specifically to WebCenter. Again, we appreciate everyone joining today, and just that final reminder, we will have other webinars in our series, so please check us out on our homepage to see what those topics are going to be. But for now, we're going to close, and we wish everyone a great day. Thank you.